Prohibition began in 1919 when the 18th Constitutional Amendment was enacted. This amendment made it illegal to manufacture, transport, or sell any beverage containing 0.5% or more alcohol. Yet buying and consuming alcohol remained legal, as well as the prescribing of intoxicating liquor for medical purposes. The Volstead Act was lobbied for by the Anti-Saloon League and the Women's Temperance Union, which were both centered in Ohio. The biggest flaw of the Prohibition movement was that its supporters believed that all drinkers were bound to become alcoholics. Southern Democrats, as well as members of the Protestant Church, showed overwhelming support for the Prohibition movement. Saloons were common and popular meeting places for city folk, and drinking was part of the city dwellers' culture. Therefore, people who lived in rural areas were more in agreement with Prohibition than people who lived in urban areas.
There was a wide spectrum of reactions to Prohibition, from people who calmly accepted the amendment to bootleggers and gangsters that became rich from the illegal sale and trafficking of liquor, like Al Capone. Bootleggers, who got their name for carrying alcohol to consumers in the top of their boots, sold their goods to speakeasies and gangsters. According to author Mark McCutcheon, liquor in the form of moonshine and bathtub gin were produced in thousands of homemade stills across the country. Chicago, the home of Capone, was the most notorious booze-hustling city in the country and was rumored to have about 100 stills per city block. In 1927, arrests for drunken driving skyrocketed 476%, while deaths from alcoholism rose 600%. Americans could find liquor everywhere. In Canada, per capita liquor sales increased from 9 gallons to 102 gallons per year as Americans crossed the border to drink legally or to illegally smuggle booze back to the States. Others also purchased and smuggled alcohol from Bermuda, the Bahamas, and Mexico. In the U.S., alcohol could easily be purchased from boats offshore, local speakeasies, neighborhood pharmacists, even from innocuous drugstores and ice cream shops, which often served as fronts for illicit liquor businesses. Speakeasies were illegal bars that were disguised as ordinary apartments or shops. Prospective drinkers could gain entry into a speakeasy by providing a password or a secret knock. Speakeasies were given their unique name because of the need to whisper as patrons attempted to cross their illegal thresholds. Spots like these glamorized alcohol, increasing its abuse in some places, opposite to what Prohibition was intended to do.
Police presence was heightened during this time of lawbreaking, but the extra work of the government was not effective. Even though Prohibition agents made more than 500,000 arrests for liquor violations between 1920 to 1930, the illegal flow of alcohol continued unaffected. Surprisingly, thousands of policemen were involved in the illegal trade themselves. In an interview with former Chicago Police Chief Charles Fitzmaurice, Fitzmaurice admitted that during the height of Prohibition, 60% of his policemen were in the bootleg business. Surveys showed that the Prohibition Bureau agents managed to stop only 5% of rum runners and just 10% of stills. Much like drug trafficking statistics today, Prohibition, failing to fully enforce sobriety and costing billions, rapidly lost popular support in the early 1930s. As the Great Depression continued to grind on, it became increasingly clear that the Volstead Act was unenforceable and Prohibition faded as a political issue. In 1933, the 21st Amendment to the Constitution was passed and ratified, ending national prohibition. After the repeal of the 18th Amendment, some states continued prohibition by managing statewide temperance laws. Mississippi, the last dry state in the Union, ended prohibition in 1996.